I always try to have some little philosophy at the beginning because I think it's important uh, to be someone deep and understand that there's more than just the tangible things that we see. But it's not what you learn that is important when you go to the university, is what you become. And I think that's what is very important and is realizing that it's this change that you getting. You know, it's like going to the gym. It's not so much the muscle, but it's uh, improving your health, I think. And here's the same. It's not just the knowledge, the memory that you got of things, but suddenly it's your view of the world. And as you get older, I think that's one of these things. It's like you have your brain that's not suddenly is more conscious. It's this level of consciousness that you get, this level of understanding that becomes greater. And that's what I'm trying to do here is have this level of understanding and that's why in the previous class I had those subjects that had nothing to do with business, but I wanted you to show your opinion, tell me what you think. And then there was the consultant that says what they think, and now this time you have more freedom, so you will come up with the own business that you want to sell to an investor. So here's what's very important. This is an exercise. What you will be doing between now and mid-May is an exercise. So I'm going to say it, hoping that everybody will understand me, but not everybody will understand me, but they will be must. And you'll have to help the people that don't understand me because otherwise your life will be difficult for no reasons, which means that the subject that you should pick to complete in the next 6 weeks is not a subject that you have passion for the past 2 years, 10 years, 20 years of your life. The objective is not to solve one of your dream, produce one of your dream in the next 6 weeks. The deal is to produce something that can be easily or more easily produced in the next 6 weeks. So some students, there's always three, four, think that this is an opportunity to do something that they wanted to do as an entrepreneurship in the music industry and then force it to the rest of their colleagues. It doesn't work because the rest of the colleagues don't have the vision, the passion that you have, and therefore they will let you do it, the work. And you will end up doing it, and everyone is going to take a back seat. So you want to find a project that is neutral and equal to everyone. So everyone has the same limited knowledge or amount of knowledge. So that way you're on the same stand. If you take a personal project, it becomes personal, and you don't have enough time to do a good job with the personal project. So you want to take the project that is easiest to accomplish between now and May. Out of the four groups, there will be probably three groups doing that, and they will do very well, and they will say, "Oh, this was a great assignment. I'm inspired. In fact, I want to do my own business and all this that." And there will be one that won't do that, and they will force themselves to do something that the project takes much more time than 6 weeks, which might be more interesting, more inspiring, ambitious, and so forth. But the problem is there's not enough time to do it right. So therefore, it's going to be a half job. So here again, just think about this. You have to think of the concept of parsimony. The concept of parsimony is optimization of time, resources, and being smart about it. You're not going to be judged on the most likely that you become a billionaire from this project. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's just, did you accomplish the exercise by optimizing, by quickly getting to opportunities, quickly finding research that backs up your strategies, quickly have a definition of the budget, quickly have an understanding of the return on investment. The quicker you get to that, the easier your life is going to be. And the easier it's going to be to prove us that you're an entrepreneur because you can go to the meat, you can go to the essence. So again, I'm hoping there's four group out of four, but usually there's one that keeps doing what they want, this dream of them. And this is not the place to do that because we don't have the time to do usually big projects. Next quote, and obviously that connected to what we just did because I had you in other classes, so there's a little wink on it, but those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So if I say, um, should you do research in business? That was kind of a question in the first quiz. Should you focus Why should marketers focus on profits? So you don't want to delete the information and the knowledge you gained from the previous class because you'll use it again in this class. I'm just being honest with you. Sometimes students are professional students, which is that they are very good at exams, very good at assignments, and they go from one unit to the other just that way they can check mark it and say, phew, I'm glad it's done. I've done this many, many times. I still do it today for certain things. I just do it because I have to and I want to move on. The previous class, maybe you want to forget about it on the last day of May when you finish with the program if you want to, but you don't want to for this class because it's very connected. So, is it possible that you will go back to your notes from the previous class in order to do better in this class? It is. I'm hoping you will because of the very closeness. Okay. So, understanding the past, remembering the past, using the trends and so forth is very important. My email is the same, has not changed. What you will do, it's kind of the same format as the previous class because I'm sort of build the syllabus, so it's mimics that, follows that, where you have some participation, two mini quizzes, one in a few weeks. Then you have three assignments this time. So in the previous class, you had multiple small assignments and you had a big one at the end, which was the presentation. This time, the the big one is divided into three portions. However, you will see there's a little things that's helpful in the way we broke those three. And then you'll have to come to class, participate. So this class has just been one of the most remarkable when it comes to participation, having your video on. That's just great. And then come to the schedule, know where you are and what's going on, and work with your groups. So my job is just to make sure that you attend, that you read my emails and so forth. So that's not been a problem. Just speaking about me again, very quickly, because I've done it in the past, but I wear three hats. Essentially, I have one hat, which is I teach. And the reason I teach is because I've always been fascinated by the university. I'm fascinated by learning. I'm the kind of person that if I open an Encyclopedia Britannica, you find me there 5 hours after still reading it. If I look at Wikipedia, it's not good because I'm going to be on it for hours because I just love knowledge and I love the university because I was a professor. I was 23 years old, which was bad because I was too young. But I was an MBA professor at the time when I was 23, so I was younger than my students. But obviously now it's been 30 years, so now I'm older than my students. But it's great to be surrounded by young people, great to be in the university because you cannot stop learning. People think once you get an MBA or once you get a degree, that's when you implement. No, you should keep learning. Learning should not be just being in the university, should be something you want to do all your life. Anyway, that's my perspective. So I love the university and the concept of starting from a fresh semester and a new knowledge and so forth. Then I do research. My specialty is mostly luxury. I've won a number of prizes, best paper of the decade, best book of the year. I do research in luxury in the most prestigious journal in the world, Journal of Business Research. So sometimes students say, "Oh, you professor at CSUN, maybe no, Professor CSUN also published in the top journals and do top things. And it's a great university because it gives you a lot of freedom to do a lot of things. It's a great area in the world, Los Angeles. There's a lot of things that can be done. That's great. So other things that I've done is work for the biggest consulting firm in the world, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Arthur Andersen. I've given, like right now, I'm an advisor for the richest man in Los Angeles. He has several billion dollars, and I'm an advisor for his businesses and he's the richest man in Los Angeles. So I advise individuals, I advise all kinds of people, but I also have a business, which is one is about producing cognac, and I fully own it. I have zero partner, well, I have partners in my family, but and then I have a Swiss company that makes watches, which I'm running with one of my brothers, and then I have my new project, which I started in 93, so it's not totally new, but it's the Brand Luxury Index, which is the most used methods for measuring luxury. And so I'm creating this organization, which is publishing information. It's just the information collection has started more than 20 years ago, but the public publication has not started yet, and that's my next project. I'm working on this. I'm very excited. So if you want to wear three hats, I'm not the just a professor or just a practitioner or just a researcher. I'm doing those three things, and I don't think there's anything else you can do. I'm just doing it all because they combine with each other. When you do research, you can go deeper on what it is to be a teacher, a practitioner. When you a practitioner, you can actually test your ideas live, doing it yourself. You can't fake it. This time you really have to do it for real. So all of this is my perception of the lifestyle of a business person is you should be a three-legged duck and not just one. Anyway, so words that you have to use again that you've learned in the previous class, which is segmentation, perceptual map, what is marketing, marketing strategies, and so forth. But also, I'd like you to tell me what you think about those different function of the business. What's consulting, business, accounting, marketing, production, finance, law, innovation, management, human resources, finance, it says, production, and so forth. What are all these functions? All these functions are all the functions you need in order to run a business. You see, if you're in marketing, most of what you worry about is marketing. If you're in accounting, you worry about accounting. If you're in production, you worry about production. So obviously, the context now is if you're in production, you worry about the customer and production. If you're in accounting, you worry about the customer and accounting. If you're in finance, you worry about finance and accounting and so forth. So the customer is sort of the central point for everyone. But when you're an entrepreneur, you have to worry about all of this. And that's why it's so difficult to be an entrepreneur, is because you have to have multiple hats, many different hats. And you can't really say, oh, there's one hat that I don't want to wear. I mean, I don't know if any of you are a parent, but I mean, if you're parents, I assume that your kids are young, so you may not realize. But when you're a parent, the responsibility becomes challenging as your kids get older because the broadness of the responsibility becomes bigger, the liability, if you want. And so that's really sort of the analogy. Suddenly, you just have more and more on your shoulder, and you cannot say, you know what, I don't help them with homework, or I don't drive them to school. I mean, someone has to drive them to school, and someone has to help with the homework, and someone has to clean their clothes, someone has to do the shopping, all right? So suddenly you have to do all of those things versus before, if you had no kids, you didn't have to worry about any of these. You just had to worry about yourself. And so when you're an employee, you just worry about what you've been asked to do. When you're an entrepreneur, no one is asking you to do anything, and you have to do it all. And that's what's very difficult is how do you go from an employee mentality, which is you waiting to be told what to do, to an entrepreneur when nobody tells you anything and you have to do 10, 20, 50 times more things and more functions. And there are functions that you don't like. I know, for example, I've been teaching my daughter to become an entrepreneur, and I know she doesn't like accounting and taxes. She absolutely hates it. And she probably, I don't know, clean my car before she would do that. Like easily clean my car. Like she'll clean the whole neighborhood car before she'll do accounting. But you have to do this because you have to find, if you're spending too much money on something, when you're profitable, what is more profitable, you have to have some control over your expenses, and that's what accounting does, and that's very, very important. So to improve this is hire an accountant. That way you don't have to do it and someone else is doing it. And that way you don't have to do something that you hate. So sometimes being an entrepreneur is being someone who is good at realizing your weaknesses and hiring the right people to do those things because nobody is amazing at every one of the function in entrepreneurship. Another thing I want to remind you is there's the Canvas. In Canvas, you'll have all kinds of information. So don't forget to go in there for the announcements, for the module, for the videos, for the summaries, for all of these different things. Looking at the grades for all the assignments that you'll have to do. So participation, quiz 1, quiz 2. Then there's another thing is those forum discussions. So Professor Mackenzie will be in charge of those forum discussion, not me. So that's the only thing is different from the previous class is there is some sort of forum discussion, but believe people do very well with it, so it should not be a threat. Even though it's new, it should not be a threat. Now, what I want to spend the most time is those three things because they are the one that are like the assignment. Instead of having one presentation, you have to do three presentation. But you don't have the concept and the summaries and the things that you had to do before. But this time, what it is it's the one sheet is a alpha version of the go-to-market, and the go-to-market is alpha version of the in-class final presentation. So what we did is we break down the final presentation in smaller versions, and the small versions have to be accomplished before. Here's what we did that is, I just tell you because I want you to feel good about it, is the reality is out of four groups, there may be one group or two groups which at the beginning won't do amazing. But we know that can happen, one or two that don't do amazing, and we don't want each one of those three to be a third of the grade, like 33%, 33%, 33%. So what we did is we lower the weight of the first one and even lower the weight of the second one, which is not the explanation. The explanation is people are smart in this program, but it's an explanation why also people don't get the frustration of doing poorly. Is because if they were ever to do poorly, it would be poorly on something that is has a low weight. So that way you have all kinds of opportunity to remedy this by improving it, figuring it out, which every time the four groups figure it out at the end. And it's sometimes the best presentation is someone that didn't do the third best presentation was the group that did the worst in the first presentation, right? It happens too. So it's not, so it's important to see that there's no threats. There's no system of threats, system that's going to create anxiety and stress and so forth. It's all about learning and growing and figuring out as you grow. Okay. Do you have any questions on these? On the steps or no? Okay. So do you see what I mean by those? The first one, 10%, the second one, 10%. So it's even if you don't do very well, usually people do so well at the end that it doesn't matter. Okay. So that's important. Now, the two quiz, I put the date here, but it's written in the syllabus in multiple places. But this 22nd of April is the first one. The 6th of May is the second one. The 22nd of April will have a good amount of information, more than 50%, I think, that comes from me type of testing, even though I won't be there very much. There's a lot of content in there, which is sort of very related to the previous class. It's like, why do you worry about the customers and what is satisfaction and all this? Because these are things that entrepreneurs should know. If an entrepreneur doesn't know what is customer satisfaction, that's a bad start. So those things have to be covered again in entrepreneurship. So I think you all did so well in the previous class that you should be fine. So the one sheet is on the 11th, then the go-to-market on the 18th, and then the final class is the startup on the 13th. So here's for the dates. Again, it's in the syllabus. So my objective today is to describe an entrepreneur, describe the steps, describe the personalities, the different functions, and start going into the entrepreneurial marketing and all this. That's what I want to talk about. I think someone may have had a question. I'm not sure. I heard some sound. No? Okay. So entrepreneurs are very popular, and there's many reasons why they're popular. It's because people like this lifestyle. They like the concept, the idea. It's trendy to be an entrepreneur, and they feel like there's a lot of freedom, and it's one way to express yourself. It's one way maybe to change the world. There are lots of programs that do entrepreneurships. It's becoming extremely popular. CSUN has an entrepreneurship program. Every school has an entrepreneurship program, and that's very important to recognize that. So the subject in itself is being taught, and it's a subject that is growing, which means more and more students are taking entrepreneurship as a major, as a subject that they focus on. Another thing you can see is looking at Amazon, obviously, 35,000 books that have to do with entrepreneurship. So that's a lot of books, right? And I have a picture here of many of the books that I was trying to look at that could be sort of the stereotype of the entrepreneurship book. A lot of people, when they think about starting a business, they buy a book. It's a very common thing. So you buy a book, you read the book. The book is very inspirational. At the end of reading the book, you're not totally sure what to do. But oftentimes students ask me, if there was one book, maybe two books, which one would you recommend? So I kind of really try to break it down in the books where I think the person who wrote the book is not, because there was Peter Thiel as well that wrote a pretty good book, but I removed it because Peter Thiel is becoming questionable, I think, for so many reasons. And so I'm thinking, why would I recommend a book, even though the book is good, but someone that is maybe not the nicest person, or at least someone with an opinion that is, you know, that goes with the weirdness of those days, and we have enough of that. So I just simple people, and if there was only one, I recommend the one from Guy Kawasaki, um, which is great. He worked a lot for Apple. He has a lot of videos. Sometimes you may say, "Oh, I can't afford the book," or "I don't have the time for the book." So you go on YouTube and you put Guy Kawasaki, and you will find a lot of his videos. And he's a good guy. His books are great. And easy to read with a lot of like a cooking recipe, simple and very useful. So if there was only one, I would say the anything from Guy Kawasaki. Otherwise, there's no need for a book in this class. And we're gonna do so many different things that it'd be too much to also try to cover a book. So we gonna do very well without a book anyway. But these will be the one I will recommend. So there's several definitions for marketing and the several definition for entrepreneurship. And at the end, it's just an angle. It depends where you're sitting. So the academic definition is entrepreneurship is the process by which individuals pursue opportunities without regard to resources they currently control. So it's very much this concept of opportunities. Venture capitalist is entrepreneurship is the art of turning an idea into a business. So here's a little bit the problem is you've heard me many times say that you should not be in love with ideas, you should be in love with problems. And there's one individual, I think he's a good guy, Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk is, I think Gary V, that's how he's known. He's a really good guy, and he's a famous American entrepreneur. He's probably one of the top 10 most influential in social media and so forth. And that's oftentimes what he says as well, is be in love with the problems. And that's exactly right. And so the problem is when people start talking about the idea and fall in love with the idea, it becomes very myopic, very narcissistic. And as an entrepreneur, and I was trying to explain this to an undergraduate that was like 22 years old yesterday, and she was very mature, but I don't know, it's hard. It's if you go in business, do not invest in the business that you have the biggest love and passion in some ways, because it's a very emotional decision, and business should be somewhat rational. A little bit like, I don't know, buying a car. There's the car that you absolutely love and that you think it's the best or whatever, and you buy this, I don't know, Alfa Romeo. And next thing you know, it's sexy, it's all of this, and next thing you know, you need to change the spark plugs, and it's five times the time it takes for another car and all of this, and then you have all kinds of problems because you didn't want to see the reality of the maintenance and the complication and all that. And sometimes relationship is the same. Is this perfect person for the week and this first person for the year and this perfect person for the life? And it's kind of like this, is you have to see all the different perspectives. And so an idea is very limited in its perspective versus an opportunity is more objective. Ideas are subjective, opportunities are more objective. Another problem with the idea is good investors won't invest on an idea. A good investor will invest on a sound research based on real opportunities with a real customer and a real execution, but not on an idea. An idea is too vague, it's too subjective again. So you want to focus on this concept of coming up with supported ideas with opportunities and make sure it's realistic. So I think that's realism is what you will be judge for the realistic perspectives. Okay. Do you have any questions at this time? No? Okay, so I'll keep on going. So what's interesting as well is when people talk about entrepreneurship, they think that it's a startup, right? And so entrepreneurship is not just a startup. Being an entrepreneur is someone who values improving, updating, innovating. So I think that's really what's number one. Updating, innovating, improving for the sake of growing satisfaction to the customers. So if you're someone who just think about innovating, you may be product oriented, you may be engineer oriented. Is you constantly thinking about new features, new technology in order to improve the product. But you may be improving the product, but it 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 doesn't make sense to people. I mean, Amazon Fresh. Amazon Fresh on paper is great. You walk in, the thing senses you, you walk out, the thing senses you, you went there with your Tesla, your white Tesla with white inside, your Apple Watch, and you walk in, you walk out, and everything happens and it's a miracle. Wow, yeah, but that's just for those few people that are that way. Are there enough people like this? Are people jumping on innovation, technological innovation? Are there enough people in this world that don't want to speak to anyone? It's like, I hope nobody looks at me and speaks to me. I'm going to go to this store and I'll have no human contact. Great. I hate human. And therefore, it's going to be great. So that's what they thought. So in some way, it was a geek speaking to a geek coming up with a geek entrepreneurship ID, and it was very satisfactory to a few geek. And once the few geek realized that they had the Costco syndrome, which means that when you pay with real dollars, with money, you don't spend as much than you when you use a credit card. And when you don't even use a credit card, you spend even more money. So when they looked at the bill and say, "Hey, honey, wow, we spent $3,000 in groceries. Last month was $2,000. What changed?" "Well, I'm going to Amazon Fresh." "Oh, don't go there anymore because obviously you don't feel like you're paying. You're just working, work out. It's like a free thief." And so that only worked for a short time, and everyone did it one or two times for the novelty, and then the business has disappeared, what, 2 weeks ago. So anyway, that's what's very, very important is entrepreneurship is therefore looking at not creating just new things, starting new things, but you could be working for General Electric. You could be working for a Boeing and being an entrepreneur in Boeing. In fact, oftentimes those big businesses, when they don't do very well, you know what they do? Is they buy smaller companies which were created by startup and entrepreneurs. And then they take them in. Usually, if they're smart, they don't fire the entrepreneur. They ask them to stay for another few years in order to keep the culture of that original company, and they use them as long as they can because they want to inject this new blood of entrepreneurship inside the business. So the hardest thing is not to start a business. The hardest thing is to keep this entrepreneurship spirit, right? It's the same. The hardest thing is not to get married. The hardest thing is to stay married, right? And it's the same thing here. Is the hardest thing is to be a continuous entrepreneur. So to be therefore, what I'm trying to say is it's more important to be entrepreneurial than entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurial is this thing that consists in constantly scanning for problems, constantly, like being a perfecter is you're looking to improve, but you're not the perfecter for your own perception of the perfection. So it's inner directed, is outer directed, is perfecter for the consumers. So what's very, very interesting is it's almost like a religious message in being a good business person, in the sense that you care of people well-being. And you maybe realize that you could not become the Pope because there's only one. So therefore, what you're going to do is become a business person, because you're going to use this concept of business to bring a better world to people and satisfy them better, bring a more fair world, more ethical world, improve their life, improve their well-being by coming up with the innovations, the solution to their problems in a way that is sustainable and really meaningful. And so it's this leadership position that I really try to explain to the students. It's not the Terranos. I mean, I started with Terranos because I was being obnoxious. That's the opposite. Terranos is let's get rich fast by scamming people. But that's, is everyone scamming, getting caught? I think so, eventually. So therefore, if you do it, it's love and service for being a business person that cares for improving the world. And it could be anything. And if you're in the music industry, you take it in that industry, and you care for that industry, and what you can change for better. Okay. So does that make sense? I don't want to sound like a preacher here, but I want to make sure that you understand the concept behind a healthy business. Okay. So entrepreneurial firms are therefore more proactive, more innovative. They take risks because obviously they're creating new things. So new things are not 100% sure it's going to work. Versus the conservative firms don't have this entrepreneurship spirit, this entrepreneurial way of doing business. Is they just wait for other people, other businesses to be entrepreneurship, to run some entrepreneurship, to be entrepreneurial. They don't embrace innovation. They're scared of innovation, and therefore they just wait and take the least risk as possible. So why would people want to be an entrepreneur? Because they want to be their own boss. And that can be good, but sometimes it's possible also that not everybody really has what it takes to be their own boss, because maybe they have ideas and they think the ideas is better than everyone else. So maybe there's a bit of narcissism and maybe a bit of arrogance sometimes. And sometimes it's good to have this because they need to be some kind of confidence. Yeah, I think have I seen people that are good entrepreneurs with a lack of confidence? I've seen it, but phew, it must be so tough because but I've seen a lot of very successful people that have a overdose of confidence, and that's just what it is. It's a very sort of there's a level of, yeah, mostly in the people that are the most successful. They are to some extent very sure of themselves, but those people, when they really care for their environment, they are amazing too, because they become leaders, constructive leaders. Obviously there's people that want to also know that they merit, and therefore they will make the money that they deserve. When you work as an employee, oftentimes you have the feeling that what's the point of staying longer? What's the point of working harder? It's not going to change anything because that's just a fixed salary and so forth. There's maybe some bonuses, but I don't see really what I give and what I get, and and that's a reason why, many reasons why I'm an entrepreneur is not just for the financial reward, but it's very nice to know that you've built something and that's yours. And it's not easy that for someone to take it away. Versus when that's one thing is kind of sad when you're a professor, is you've seeded a lot of people. You've tried to have this inspired as many people in the world, but then when you decide to leave the university, they remove the plaque on the door, on your door office, and that's it. Nobody knows. It's pure service. So it's true. If you're an entrepreneur, the business may have your name, and you may create products, you may get trademarked and patents and copyrights and all of this, and you leave a mark and you mark your path. So that's a thing people may be interested, and you are more likely to get what you deserve. But there is many more risks as well. So um, what I want to talk about here, which is not in any of those entrepreneurship book, but I think it is very important, is the concept of attribution. So has anyone heard of the concept of the psychological concept of attribution? Yes, go ahead, Justin. Maybe
Oh,
your yeah,
yeah, sorry
microphone.
about that.
No problem.
Um, but I mean, it pretty much explains how like people interpret like causes of behavior and events and things of the sort. I feel like that was kind of like a bad um explanation, but like yeah, like I know what it is. I think I'm having trouble
Yeah, yeah.
explaining it
No,
right
but
now.
go ahead because you started explaining it well. That's you were 99% correct, but you didn't fully complete your sentence. So go ahead.
Um, it would be
Yeah,
like an example would be like
yeah.
how you like attribute things happening to you like internal versus like external uh
Yes,
attribution.
yes. So why is that important?
Um, in this case, it would be this kind of understanding of like who, not to say who's at fault for what, but just like what level of control you have in a situation or in something like a business like this.
Yes. So you're very correct. So it's very I was just saying it's very rare that anyone knows anything about it. And you're one of those extremely rare people that have sort of the understanding of what it is. To me, this is a concept that is extremely important because it helps you make learn and progress and self um, uh, achieve much faster. So I give you an example. I'll give you several. One that I see a lot with students is there's many type of students, but there's the students that say that they didn't do well in a class because of the professor. And it's very possible that someone could do not as well in a class because of the professor. So that's attribution theory is why do you succeed and why do you fail? I succeed because of me and I fail because of others. The problem of attributing failures externally is minimizing the impact that you have on your own success. So if you maximize, optimize, and understand that your successes are very much, at least in terms of proportion, attributed to what you've done, you have more chances to make some changes. So you very difficult to make changes on the world. It's much easier to make a change on you. So typical thing that happens to me is there's a student that come and say, Professor, I really don't understand. I usually get A in exams, and in your exams, I didn't get an A. And that moment, the situation is the student's going to do external attribution, trying to convince me that I'm a bad professor and I'm not explaining things well, and that's why all my exams are screwed up? Or is the student's going to say, tell me how they studied, tell me how they took the exam, and try to understand what they didn't do right this time that get them an A. It's a total game changer. When the students take ownership of the attribution of their failure, they have more likelihood to succeed. So I learned this directly in a conversation at a dinner table, sitting next to a gentleman called um, Martin Seligman. Martin Seligman, for the longest year, I don't think he is anymore, but he was the president of the American Psychology Association. So he was the most famous psychologist in the United States of America. I went to a dinner, I sat next to him. I'm kind of geeky psychology type of person. Next to him, we had a good time. I didn't know him, and we felt like we knew each other. It was great, and we talked all kinds of things. We talked about sports. We even talked about suicide. And the reason we talked about suicide is because he's one of the most famous psychologists for that unfortunate incident. And so he was telling me that that and so many other things are related to attribution. And how do you attribute your failure gets you to become someone that can improve much faster than other people. So sports people, let's say you take a swimmer. This person swims and say, I didn't win because the water was too cold. I didn't win because it's too windy. I didn't win because my swim trunk moved. I didn't win because my goggle moved. I didn't win. And the people that do an external attribution are less likely to succeed versus the people that would say, I didn't win because I didn't train enough, because I didn't do the right motions, because I didn't prepare good enough, because I went to bed too late before swimming and all that, where the people that eventually will be the one that are more likely to win down the road because they will be trying to correct themselves versus blaming external things. So if I say this, many of you are thinking, oh, that's very obvious. But the reality is, if you look around you, not too many people actually do attribution correctly, where they try to really see what they can do. Very hard to change your neighbor, your friend, much easier to change yourself and have control over yourself. If you don't believe me, listen to a person called Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant has a video, which is winners don't make excuses. Hey, that sounds like attribution theory. It is attribution theory. Is you don't try to make excuses if you want to become a winner. And this whole video does not mention the word attribution. It's 11 minute. They never mention attribution theory because it's a video for the common Joe. And so they're trying to keep it very simple and talk about lame words. But the theory, the psychological theory behind it is attribution theory. Why am I speaking about attribution theory? Why? It's going to be difficult for me to explain that to you because you have to be an entrepreneur in business and doing it for real. If you're an entrepreneur, I would say you have at least one problem, one nasty thing that happens to you every day. And sometimes it's a nasty thing that makes your day miserable, and you even may be thinking of quitting, making excuses. And the reality is, every time something happens, is you have to think about what did I do that generated this thing? Could have prevented it. And it's by thinking about this prevention that you can make yourself more miserable because then you start realizing that I'm such a loser, I'm such a loser, I'm such a loser, such a loser, and you start beating yourself up. Or you start realizing, no, I made this mistake because I didn't know. I won't do it again. I won't do it again. And if you work on the I won't do it again and learning from the mistakes, then you become wonderful entrepreneurs. People think the entrepreneurs are people that did it perfect from the day one to the time they became multimillionaires or successful. The reality is they made many mistakes, but they embrace these mistakes as an opportunity to learn and attribute the situation to their failures and therefore learn from their failures in order not to repeat it. So I'm going to insult you now. The people that understand that are usually the more mature people, the people that have had more crap to deal with, because they see that to deal with crap, the best way is to figure out how you could avoid it the next time versus complaining about someone else that brought the crap. Okay, so anyway, so Kobe Bryant is someone that's very liked. I recommend this video. It's very entertaining. Is the interviewer is a very famous individual. It's a good video. It's short of exactly what I'm saying. So to be a good entrepreneur, you have to have a passion for business. You have to want to go in doing this. It's like, I guess it's like boxing. You don't want to say, I um I want to be a boxer, but I like everything about boxing, but I don't like to be uh bumped. I don't like to be boxed on my face or whatever. Oh, but don't do boxing. To be a good boxer is you have to like to be beat up too, because that's part of boxing. So you have to embrace the whole thing, right? You can't peak. And so you have to have a passion for the whole thing. The fact that you're gonna have to have you can't do it by yourself. You're gonna have to have other people. The fact that you're gonna have to have partners, intermediaries, the fact that you're gonna have to become more social than you may be, the fact that you're gonna have to invest money, the fact that you're gonna have to work on Saturday and Sunday. So you can say, I want a business, but I don't want to work on Saturday and Sunday. I want a business, but I want to start working at 11:30 a.m. You know, there's a lot of things like this that can be done. Is if you want a business, is it's going to be 7 days a week. Most likely, your vacation are going to be work vacation or all kinds of things like this. It's a lifestyle change. You can't do it half job. It has to be fully vetted. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. Hobby don't turn into successful business. Very rarely they do. They have to switch to a business and they can't stay at the hobby level. They have to switch. You may start as a hobby, but if you want it to be successful, you have to switch to a business. That's essentially what this is trying to say. Um, but yeah, so you have to love the customers more than you love yourself. That's kind of weird. This love of the customer is what's going to make you people can sense that. You can't fake it. Is you have to really care for what they want, and you have to have this tenacity of failure. You have to embrace failure because you like it, because now you know about attribution. It's like you're not worried about failure because the minute there's a failure, you just analyze it and don't do it again. And then you have to have a intelligence of execution. So oftentimes the intelligence of the execution has to do with the um, finding the intermediaries. You know, what are the right intermediaries? Who is the right person to supply the material, to supply it for the right product at the right time of the year? You know, like, I mean, I work a lot with my daughter and we're making leather bags and material bags. And so I have to sometimes change the threads and there's better threads and all that. So we're learning about this. I was never worried about threads. Now I'm worried about threads and the color of threads and the supplier and the colors that changes and all this. So this execution of having the threads at the right place when they are making this and the buttons and enough buckles and all this. The execution is very important, and that's sometimes what drives you nuts, mostly if you're doing things overseas, because you have to have the logistics done as well overseas where you're not. And then you have to count on people to manage this properly. And then you have to make sure it's delivered to the stores and it's the right order that is delivered and who's packing the orders. I mean, everything is becomes huge execution. And the more people you have involved, and that's been my experience, is the more they screw ups. It's kind of like a house. The more toilets you have in your house, the more problem you have. So the less toilets, the better the in your life. The the less people, the better, but you can't do it by yourself. But then there's another thing that I think is very important that I've not mentioned here, but I've mentioned maybe before in the previous class, is the importance of curiosity. I think I was talking about IQ and EQ and social Q and so forth, where I think curiosity Q is so important, being constantly curious, asking questions, and having this relationship with the customers, trying to really understand what is it that you could do better. And sometimes that's a problem in marketing because you become so product generating, new product innovation generating for the sake of satisfying the customers that you forget about the profit point. Because the more product you make in a shorter time, the more you cannibalize your product. So you have to make sure that those products go to what we call the product life cycle. If you remember, there's the introduction, the growth, the maturity, and the decline. And so if you're launching too many products at the same time, you will cannibalize between this product. And there may be products that should do very well or should be more profitable that don't won't have their chances because they will be kind of under the shadow of another product. Then another thing is the ambition. Is you have to have this ambition, you have to have a desire for growth. This morning, there's a student that sent me an email. He said, Professor, why you say that when there's a business, you have to worry about your product portfolio? Why would a business care for the product portfolio? So then I said, what uh, if you ask a business, I'm a consultant, can I help you? And you ask this business, what is it that you need the most help with? What do you think is the number one thing businesses, they said that if you asking them to help them, what do they need to have the most help with? The number one thing a business is asking help with.
Finances.
No.
Growth.
Yeah, growth. But before growth, I was going to say growth is the next step. Before growth. Oh, okay, so what do you mean by growth? What's in growth?
Take their business to the next step.
Yeah, but what does that mean? What's in growth? What's the next step?
Find an opportunity for them
Yeah,
to grow.
yeah, but right now you
Too broad.
we're too broad. Yeah, you too much like the previous class, like me talking. You have to go to the simple thing. Um,
Satisfaction.
no, it starts with the S. After this S is also a. After the
Satisfaction.
after the A is a L.
Look. SAL.
Sales.
Sales.
Sales. Yeah, sales. If you talk to a business and you ask them what they want more, is they want more members, more
What
sales,
sales?
more customers, more money, right? And that's growth. That's why I said growth is correct. Because I was going to say sales is part of what? It's part of growth. And what's the biggest, closest, most important component of growth is sales. So that's very, very important to, that's another thing is very important. I've been in so many businesses that as a consultant that they poo-poo, they look down on sales. Is they don't realize that sales is it's like the so like the customer is like the art, right? But sales is like the blood or like the oxygen. So you need sales. There's no sales, there's no customer, there's no growth, there's no money. This business is a joke.
Nothing happens till somebody sells something.
Exactly. And that's what's very exciting is because sometimes you meet some people that own a business and then you look at that business and you go, wow, this person is not sophisticated. This person has didn't go to school, no degrees. They don't really understand finance. They don't understand HR. They don't understand marketing, social media. They have no idea what you're talking about, all this. But their business is doing very well because the bank account is full. And why is the bank account is full? It's because they're very good at buying and selling. Buy and sell. They buy low, they sell high. They're really good at picking up what to buy, what to sell. I worked with a business like this in France when I was in the 90s. And it was a company that was selling exotic fruits. And they were selling exotic fruits in Cannes. So Cannes, maybe you heard, is the movie festival, is where all the rich people, the big yacht and the helicopter go, and all the bling bling goes. It's like a Beverly Hills on testosterone. And so this business suddenly decided to sell exotic fruit in Cannes. And I remember I was like, wow, that's gonna be tough and all that and this person says, no, no, I know where to buy them. And then I'm gonna sell it to the yachts. And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. And this person became extremely wealthy and very successful because they knew that the yachts with all the Qatari and the Bahraini and the Russians and so forth, they didn't want fruits. They wanted exotic fruits. They wanted the papaya and all the names that nobody knows because they wanted everything to look very lush and exuberant. And so they found all of this. They were really good at supply. They were really good at buying them. They were really good at shipping them to the place just in time. And then they just talked to the boat supplier for the supply and food. And this person just looked at it and had such a big budget. Instead of worrying about selling one fruit, one pineapple by one pineapple to one person and go to the supermarket and be grinded down, every cent matters, whatever. No, just go to those yachts and first he had a Zodiac and he went with the Zodiac with baskets of these and he just gave it to them and say, hey, I'm so and so, there's my card in it. The next day, everybody was calling and buying. They were buying by $5,000 or $10,000 orders. Anyway, so that's and zero understanding of business, this person, just buy and sell. I'm not recommending this. I'm just saying that if you're really, really good at that, you can have a business and you can be horrible at all the other functions and still do very well, which proved my point that sales is number one. But then if you have sales and marketing and finance and production and accounting and all of that, then you're just rocking it. Because then it's everything. It's like an engine where all the piston works versus just one works, and that one works makes the car move. So you can say the car doesn't work, but that's the idea. Sales is so important that just with that, you could succeed. All right. And does it make sense to everyone now to some extent, this concept?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So believe in sales and do not underestimate it. So I could go. Remember, I told you there was 36,000 books about entrepreneurship, and each one of those books is trying to give you a definition of what's an entrepreneur. So I could spend the next 6 weeks just talking about the different definition from the different books, which I'm not going to do. But I just gave you some of the traits. Other traits is tenacity, so tolerance of ambiguity. So that's another thing is very important. Is there's a lot of situation where there are decisions to be taken, and you have to be very good at making decisions. Um, like this billionaire I'm working with right now. Um, I um, I made a vodka for him. I made a cognac. Now I'm making a gin and a whiskey for him. He's a celebrity billionaire in Los Angeles, and so I'm making his whiskey. Normally, what I do when I go see someone to for them to make their own whiskey is I go there with maximum of 5 bottles. So I go with 5 empty bottles. And I suggest those 5 bottles based on the storyline that we have for the brand, for that whiskey brand. So you don't launch a whiskey brand. First, what you do is you come up with a story, then you develop the mood boards and all these different things, the labels, the targets, the positioning, and all of this. And then you come up with a trademark. Then you start developing the website and the packaging and all of this. But you have to decide what will be the bottle at certain times. So when people are ready, I show up with 5 bottles. Why not? I don't show up with more than 5 bottles? Because most of the time, if there's more than 5 choices, people don't know what to choose. And in fact, they choose nothing. And the worst thing is if they not by themselves, if they start asking the people around them, what do you think? You would be surprised the number of times that I met with a CEO of a CEO of a company that makes more than $100 million. And at the time of making a decision, he turns around to the 23 years old secretary that sits on his right or whatever and looks at the 23 years old secretary that makes $3,000 a month and say, "Hey, Janie, what do you think?" And that always blew me away because he's a gray hair. He's been doing this. He owns the business. He makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Why does he need the opinion of Jenny? Who knows nothing about this. She started maybe this working for him 3 months ago. But that happens all the time. It's just amazing. But then you have some people, and those leaders are just amazing, where you give them many different complex situations, and they just look at this and they have an eye for simplifying and making everything clear. It's not clear for everyone, but it's clear for them. So I don't want to lose you on this, but this is a very important skill, is decision making, taking complex scenarios and simplifying, right? And in some ways, right now, because obviously the news for the past 2 months have been the craziest news I think I've heard in my life. And so everyone, if you're watching the news, there's a lot of people that make things more complicated than they are when they talk about what is going on. And then there's some people that simplify and they are sort of clearly seeing the situation. They're sort of removing all the smoke and they're seeing it much more clearly. And that's what's very important when you're a business owner, is this ability to see through all the smoke and go to what's essential and this understanding of the tolerance. Okay. Ashay, you have your hand up. Do you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I have a question because this goes back to when you mentioned why businesses don't like sales.
Yeah,
And
some.
some
I've heard.
businesses,
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there's I've been listening to the media, and there's this consistent thing that's coming up about billionaires not being honest people, that there's no such thing as a good billionaire, and
Okay.
that you can't be a billionaire and be a person who is um fair or fair-minded to the masses, and that generally billionaires are not good people. And I'm wondering, why is that being said today? That what is going on in business, or why are people who are not are judging people that are billionaires and that they are not fair-minded people?
Yes. So it's perfect you ask me this question because I'm going to ask the class, who is the most famous CSUN alumni since the school was created. I think it was in 1965.
Andrew Sermani. Just kidding.
No, is it the Nazarene, the
Nazarian.
Nazarian? Yeah.
Yeah. So you could say, yeah, he's probably pretty famous. There's one more famous, much more famous. Now, he's very famous. And you know why he's famous? Because he's a business billionaire. And then you go, what? That's funny because that's what Ashley was talking about, those business billionaires.
Right.
So there's a CSUN alumni who is a business multi-billionaire. He's very much voicing his voice, but none of you who are from CSUN know him. And the reason you don't know him is because he does not totally fit with the stereotype of what CSUN likes to portray themselves.
Oh, so that's interesting.
That's interesting, isn't it? So to explain with this, what I'm going to do is actually switch sharing, and we're going to look at a very short little video of this gentleman. All right, so you see the character. He's special. This is Dan Pena for you. So I thought it was very appropriate to show you just this at this time because it sort of said a lot of the things I actually said. You know, it's good to fail because it's your opportunity to test yourself and learn to do better the next time. It's very important to have some conviction, and it's important to have objectives. I think that's interesting, is concept of affirmation. That's the ambitious part, the drive that I was talking about, the curiosity where you enjoy learning, you have discipline. You sleep in your office. You don't sleep in your office because you don't have a home. You sleep in your office because that's the center of the universe. It's your business. It's not a hobby to be an entrepreneur. It's a real job. So I think Dan Pena is probably the richest ever created CSUN student. He's a multi-billionaire. He owns a huge castle in England. And in his castle, he's continuously, every day, doing seminar. If you put his name on the social media, you'll see he's everywhere. I mean, that video was more than 1 million views. And so he's not liked by CSUN. And I can see why, because he's a little abrasive. He's not the type of a person that CSUN likes to have, even though he was the spokesperson for the graduation in 1992, I think. But right after that, they decided they never wanted him back because he probably said something obnoxious at the graduation ceremony. But he's still an individual that's very interesting. Obviously, he probably comes across as an ultra Republican, and comes across a little difficult for some people, but he has some good points. It's like someone with experience. So that way, Dan Pena, you've heard about it. But again, like I said, the university doesn't advertise. They try to hide him as much as they can, in fact. But you can even find a video, actually, of the Dan Pena spokesperson in the 90s for the graduation. I think it's on YouTube as well. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, but they're so politically controversial. I'm gonna keep them to myself.
Oh, okay.
But I will say this.
There's a lot of information in there. The difference between an employee and an entrepreneur, the difference between the people that understand money and the people that don't. And so this piece of understanding the money is the piece that I think is the most important. It's the piece that is called the break-even analysis. So the break-even analysis is a must-do. And I said this last time, even at the end of the presentation, I said, we're not talking much about the break-even in this class because we will talk in the next class. If there was one slide that would be the most important, because I'm a marketing person, I would say it's the opportunity slide. But the reality is it's probably the break-even slide. So just remember this. You have to do a break-even. You have to talk about money when you speak to an investor. You have to say what your product costs, what you think you're going to sell it, if you sell it at this price, what you're going to do to sell it, and how many you will sell, and project the amount that you sell, the return on investments, the money that you're going to ask from me, and when am I going to get my money. And so that's very, very important to be able to talk about money. One message I told you is if you're a salesperson, you can survive, but you also need to understand money. It's not just buy and sell, it's the understanding of the differential between buy and sell, and intuitively know that you have enough money. So sometimes I call money, I call it fat. You have enough fat to survive. It's like a bear. Did I eat enough fat to make it through the winter? And it's the same thing. It's this survival instinct of having ate enough fat so that way you can survive. Obviously, you don't want to try to do it by intuition or by guessing or by memory. Is you really want to plot it on a graph, and the graph is called a break-even analysis. The break-even analysis is something that is easy to learn, but then you have to defend it. And that's what we are expecting in your presentation is how do you defend that break-even analysis? How do you make us believe that what you're saying is realistic and could be true? And we are feeling more confident rather than less confident about what you're trying to say. So that's one of the elements that is there. It's very important. And I don't know everyone understand that. That's key. The next one is even more obnoxious. And maybe like Ashe said before, maybe a little politically incorrect, but I'm a business professor. I think it's okay to talk about this, is the fact that if you have a mentality of an entrepreneur, you're actually willing to work for free. Is there anyone in the class right now that understands what this means and is willing to share with us? What do you think it means? If you're true entrepreneurs, you're willing to work for free. What does it mean? What is this message? And that's like the most profound message in the book, which is one of the most sold book probably on business.
Working for the idea, like working towards the idea. So it's not like, oh, how many hours am I going to put in towards not an idea, I guess, the opportunity, right? It doesn't necessarily matter because it's more about proving a concept or whatever the opportunity is.
So yeah, so exactly. So what you're saying without saying it is if you like, maybe I've been confusing, but that was on purpose. What's the most important thing in business is money. But if you think the most important things in business is money, therefore you will never be fully 100% successful because you will never be happy. There'll never be enough money, and you will never see success only through the eye of money. And money is in a business oftentimes is up and down and up and down and up and down. And it's the accumulation of those ups that should be more than the down that makes you very, very wealthy. So it's not the constantly winning. It's not just the money. Money should not be the only driver. Otherwise, if money is the only driver, then you become a very unethical business person. And therefore, money is part of the business, but you can't sell your soul to money. And so that's what's very tough is how can you make this clear is money is so important that you can't keep your eyes out of it, but at the same time, that should not be the number one thing that you look at. And therefore, if someone gives you a job and it's for free, therefore you should take it sometimes. I had the same thing that happened to me. I don't know if I told you, but I was in a big meeting and I was working many months for getting an investor. And then eventually I managed to go in several rounds. And then I had this investor from China. And he, for some reason, I was very bad because I kept grinding this person for giving me more money and giving him less shares. And the reason is because I felt like he was sort of I thought he gave me the feeling of being a little bit like a different, maybe a little bit dishonest or something. I don't know. I had a snake feeling about this guy. Anyway, and so I was grinding him. I was not too happy, and that's how I was reacting. Is I was negotiating, and at one time he just looked at me and he said, "Hey, Frank, if there was Warren Buffett that came in the room right now, and he offered to get the 20% I'm buying from you, but you would have to give it to him for free. Would you give it to him for free?" And at that time, I was so shocked. I had a hard time responding to that. I said, no, I would not give it to him for free. But the reality is I would give to Warren Buffett for free. Because the minute I would give it to Warren Buffett for free, I've done this a business in 2012 that I gave a large chunk of one of my business to someone that was very famous, and automatically I got more money than I would have had from many other people because he was in the business. The fact that this person was in my business made me super desirable for everyone to invest in my business. So I figured this out. That was actually after this Chinese investor. I learned from that Chinese investor. So what he was trying to say is sometimes people are worth more than money. Sometimes an experience with someone is worth more than money. And money cannot be the only thing. So what about Ashay? Sorry, hopefully I didn't express what you were about to say, but I don't know.
Did you call on me?
Yes, because you end up or someone
Oh,
else.
yeah.
Yeah.
I learned it in business, articulated a different way, but I have a health and beauty business, and my mentors tell us all the time to be generous when it comes to promoting yourself, promoting your business, and giving people good service. So I give a lot of product away, just being kind and showing the person that I'm not just there just to make money. You know,
Yeah.
if I see there's a need, I say, you know what? As a matter of fact, I went on a bus trip, and the organization that I went with, needed like little gifts and trinkets to give to
Yeah.
the people that come on that took the tour with us. And I ended up giving over $400 worth of products, just raffling them off. Didn't
Yes.
nobody even pay me for it, but it made people see me as a resource for them, as a real generous person, and a person that had their best interest. And now I'm getting a lot of callbacks. People just
Yes.
call
Yes.
me and say, can you put me an order in? And can you do this? And can you do it? So it was worth it. I got tired of looking at it on my shelf.
Yes. But actually, this is different because this is a promo sales relationship building trick. Versus here, working for free is different. So I give you another example. I run the Wells Fargo Center, which is the only one in the world sponsored by Wells Fargo. And one of the things that I do is I do actually an investor pitch. This year is the 20th year of the investor pitch. It's older than one of the oldest in Southern California. It's older than Shark Tank and so forth. When I started doing this, a lot of professors saying I was wasting my time. No, just at CSUN, there's 10 of these. When I started, there was almost none in Southern California. Now there's hundreds, but anyway. So this year is the 20th year. In when it was in 2012, I mentioned to the class, like right now, that's what I was doing, that I was running this investor pitch. It's a competition, and people compete for the one that makes the best presentation and so forth. At the end of the class, there was two people that came and said, Professor, can we talk to you at the end of the class? I said, okay, I didn't know what it was. And then when the class ended, those two people presented themselves and say, hey, we know there's nothing to win being part of the Wells Fargo Fast Pitch Investor Competition, beside the fact of competing in it and maybe winning the best fast pitch person of the year for the Wells Fargo Center, blah, blah, blah. But we would like to. Is it possible? And I said, you know what? Yeah, you can compete. Go, come and compete. These two people were Brian McKenzie and Robert T. Garden. And in fact, they competed, and you know what happened? They won. They work for free.
Oh,
They
we
did it
know
for free.
them.
Yeah.
All right.
They did it for free. That was the mentality. And I was like, wow, you guys are different. You doing stuff for free. That video, I didn't show it at the time. And I said that that's the right attitude of an entrepreneur. That's the right attitude of a business person. Is you willing to do things for free? And they say, yeah, we want to do it because it's like the life is like a baseball match. It's like a football match. It's the more play you have, the better you become. So we want to test ourselves to that competition. Can we join? And I said, please do. And they said, how do we train? I said, okay, so pitch to me and I tell you what to do. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to coach you and I will coach the other team and the best one to win. They won. And you know, when they won, what they told me there? They say, hey, maybe someday we come back and we'll teach with you. That's a true story.
Wow.
So, uh, so you see, I'm just bouncing on what you have to say. This is not a sales. This is a state of mind.
Right.
This curiosity. Remember when I was talking about the curiosity IQ? The Wells Fargo Center? There's nothing to win. Oh, I want to do it because I wanted to put it under my belt.
Right.
Under my belt. I want to be the one. I want to be the one said that I learned from the best. I did this and I did that. People don't ask you how much money because you know why? People think you made a lot of money when you work for those people. Sometimes the best thing you can do is work for the richest person in your town for free so you can tell everybody that you're working for this person. So that way you get hired by everybody because they go and think you make so much money that they give you 5 times, 10 times as much money as you're making right now because they don't know. But they just know that if you're doing it, you must be good. So
So
that's what you're doing it for.
let me ask you a question. What would be your approach? Let's just say, who would I want to work for? Say Capitol Records.
Yes.
How do you get enough confidence to go to them and say, I want to work for you for free? Or how would you pitch that to them?
No, if you do this, you can't do it this way.
Oh, how do you do it?
Well, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's like if you go to a girl and you say, oh my God, you're so pretty. I've never seen anyone pretty like you. She looks at you and she says, go away because she's scared. You're a freak. So you just, you know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing. So you go to a record, you say, hey, I'm here. I want to work for free. They look at you and say, go away. We don't
Right.
need people that want to work for free. What it is you come to them and you say, I've looked at your business. I really love what you did in this date and by doing this. And I'm thinking that what you're doing right now would be better if you did it like this. I've been studying it. I know that you would gain from someone that has experience in this. I've done it before. I want to do it again. I think you're the best company I could show. You talk about solutions.
Okay.
You already talk about solutions to them. You're a solution provider. You're not an employee. You're not looking for a job. You're not trying to do something Monday to Friday. Is you have a solution for their problem. And that's why you want to come, is because you're a problem solver and you love to be part of the team solving this problem because you think you have a lot to bring to the table because of X, Y, and Z.
I get it now.
So it's not, you're not just a body, a warm body that will be on a chair somewhere. Is you're
Right.
this engine that is already ready to go. It's not like you're going to need introduction, 1 week of internship, 2 weeks. Day one, you're pushing the rock uphill. And so that's what's very important. People don't want a weight or a problem. They want a solution that drives itself from day one.
Mm.
Okay, yeah, so I'm going to jump very quickly. This is a video of a guy that talks about Warren Buffett's. We're talking about Warren Buffett, rule for success. And what I find very interesting is he said one of the most important thing is hiring people. And he said that the most important characteristics in hiring people is honesty. And so I thought that was very interesting as well from the perspective of these people, is honest and loyal people because he gives them a chance. They work for him and he wants to feel that he can trust them. And they're going to be learning from him, learning from his business, and using this knowledge for the purpose of growing the business. And they have this loyalty, honesty. It's not just a predatory time, buying time in order to take as much from the business to take it somewhere else. Is you're really vested in the success of the business. If you care for the business, you're really vested for it. This is really, really, really good. So now, hearing from you, what do you think are the entrepreneurial skills for musicians? What would you think they are? Yes, Justin.
I mean, at the very least, just going based off of what we were just talking about,
Yes,
performing for free or for low amounts of money, um, getting your name out there in that way.
that's very true. Same thing, right? Kind of playita when you think about it. Play, 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 play. Show
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah. Yeah, put your music in front of you. Let people hear it. Yeah, that's very important. What about taking it, and again, thinking about playita, and that was kind of a weakness, is taking it seriously, like it's a job, right? Not just a side gig. It's a job. And you need to have research. They didn't know what is research. They didn't know what's planning. At least they know now. That's the benefit. What other characteristics you think is important for musicians? Yes, Caitlin. You have
Probably
experience. Yeah, you have experience, in fact, because you work with musicians.
like negotiating. So like say like I have like a piano gig, but
Yes.
then you want to say like your price because like that's like what you're worth, you know? So you don't want to like undersell or don't let them undersell you. So negotiating is a pretty good skill to have.
Yeah, negotiating. Ooh, that's not easy. It's not easy, but it's more a thing of doing it again and again. It's experience by doing it. Yeah. Making, well, there's good negotiation, bad negotiation. You learn from both, and eventually you just become better at it. I mean, it's like playing tennis or anything. If you do it, or playing piano, the more you do it, the better you become. Yeah. What about charisma? Would that be something that's important for the musicians as well?
Yeah.
Yes, Justin.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think so. I think similar to having that, I guess you could call it hunger or that passion for, putting yourself out there. I think you also have to have that ability to get other people to really believe in you. And I think that being charismatic and, being a people person would help with that.
Yes, very much. Yeah. 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 There are some people that it helps for sure because you're going to be performing, because you're going to be interacting in socially. So charisma would be very helpful. Yes, Ashe.
No, I was just giving him a hand clap for his response.
Oh, yeah. Okay, okay. Any other comments about musician entrepreneurial skill that I think is important? So, yeah, Casey, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, with using those skills, say musicians start out and we had talked about working for free, right?
Yes.
Um, if if you don't have a whole lot of money to start out, how I guess using music industry as an example, how would a musician get over that um, hurdle? I guess it'd be
Well,
more so leaning in towards the charisma and the selling and all that.
yeah, so I mean the issue is that you don't systematically work for free. You don't That's not the concept, is that you're going to work for free.
Right.
But you will probably make certain situation for free because the money you will make is so little compared to the gain you will make. Going back to the Shark Tank program on TV, if you look at the money that they get from the sharks, 150, 200,000, getting 200,000 for startups where you're going to have to produce more than $200,000 product just as the first inventory, it's really nothing, the 200,000 that they're getting from the shark. What they really get is the network that the sharks have access to. For example, you want to sell at Walmart. I don't believe you know how to sell in Walmart if you want to sell anything. Walmart has a meeting date once a year for certain products. And when you go there at the same time as hundreds of products. They look at the catalog, the Walmart people, and they call you in, and you have 3 minutes to talk about your product. And if they like it, they make a small order or whatever. But the likelihood that you may have to wait 5 or 10 years to be picked up with there. If there's one shark that gives you X thousand and takes 20%, it doesn't matter. It's a phone call away. They're going to make one phone call and it would be already automatically bought by Walmart. And suddenly, what would have taken 10 years of your life is going to take them 10 minutes. So, oftentimes, you have to see the benefit, which is go beyond the money. So, for example, you're a musician, should you do all your concert for free and you just say, oh, you know what, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going to do all for free? No, but there will be some that you may actually people may be thinking that one you made a lot of money, but actually that one you made no money because that one, unfortunately, they told you for free, but you did it, so you could do it. And it was the stepstone to take you to the next stepstone. Sometimes it's a sacrifice to think about the fact that you don't. And this idea is you work for free is a broad statement, which means that you get less sometimes because you're getting more on the other side from a maybe not monetary side, but it's, for example, in the cognac, having British Airways that carry your cognac, right? I had one cognac which I sold to Emirates Airlines, for example. I mean, this one was good because I was selling it $5,000 per bottle. The bottle was $5,000, and they were selling it $15,000 in the VIP room in Dubai. But the point is that even they don't know this, but if they had bought it for 500, I would have sold it for 500. And for 500, I would have lost a $500 per bottle. But I would have done it because of the notoriety I would have got. So it was great because they gave me more money, but I would have done it. Sometimes I've done it for less. That's what I'm trying to say. And so it's not just free. It's this idea. Suddenly the money becomes secondary. Yes, Ashay, I think you had your hand up.
No, that's okay. You answered the question.
Okay. So just to finish the class, I want to jump on this because this is the direct connection to everything we talked before. So to be a competitive business, you need to identify opportunities. These opportunities are better if they are. So what are the best opportunities? The strategic opportunities or the tactical opportunities? Do you remember that? Anyone remember? I think you all remember, right?
Yes.
The strategic opportunities. Why do you want to find strategic opportunities more than tactical opportunities? Well, because, they're more difficult, but also they will give you a long-term direction. Tactical opportunities are short-term, they're helpful, but they're very short-term, narrow, and therefore they won't give you this long-term direction. So more important is to find long-term directions through strategic opportunities. So find strategic opportunities. So what you should do for your project in order to write your first document. So let's look at the first document. The first document is the one page. So in the one page, you have the one page clearly articulate the opportunity. So first, is it an opportunity or is it an idea? Hopefully you don't give us an idea, you give us opportunities. Then Does the one sheet include initial research justifying this opportunity? Let's hope that opportunity was not pulled out of a hat, but it's an opportunity which is supported by some research, maybe existing research, such as secondary research. Does the one sheet clearly present a viable solution to address a gap in the marketplace? So what is the gap? The gap is the opportunity, and you tell us how you're going to solve this gap, how you're going to come up with the solution. So that's the idea, if you want. So the idea is we're going to do X, Y, and Z in order to do this and this and that. And it's based on that opportunity. So, and it's not from a hat, it's from this research, which is recent and all that. So that scenario is pretty much what you did in the previous class. So you just have to repeat that. Does it clearly include a value proposition? So the value proposition is you have to explain what you will do for the customers and what they're going to get. It's clear what they get, their benefits, and the costs. Does it include at least 3 key features? So it's features of the service of the products. So you have an idea of the product mix, the brand, the features of the product, what does it do for the client, and so forth. So there's maybe a 3D, a picture, some representation that you can give us of what you think that concert, that drones, whatever music-related industry things that you all have. Do you have any estimation of the potential sales? How many you think you'll be selling in 1 year? Is it a large market, a small market? Does it present some goals? How many you want to sell? How much money you want to sell? How much profit you're going to make? All these different things maybe at the beginning. Where you're going to sell? How many this and that? Some numbers of objectives. Does the one sheet offer a basic review of the key competitors? Do we know? So normally there's always competitors, very, very rare there's none. You define the competitors and you say why these are the main competitors. Sometimes there's some direct competitors and some indirect competitors. Does the one sheet include company name and logo? So at this point, you have to come up with your company name and also a logo. So the best thing you could do is come up with 3 and pick up the best one and tell us why is that one the best one and explain how you managed to create the logo and what does it mean and how does it fit with the story of the brand and so forth. Is the one sheet designed in a professional manner and provide all information clearly on one page? So that's the next thing. So one thing I want to show you is a few one sheet. Here's a one sheet for a company whose name is ELS, Entertainment Life Specialist. The logo is the side of a head, and it says ELS where the brain is. Why? Well, it's a clinic which is specialized for artists. And it's a clinic which specializes in artists who have some issues related to psychological issues. And the market for this is pretty significant. The big major companies in the music industry have significant issues with their artist, needing specific help. It needs to be confidential. It needs to be very professional. It needs to be tailored for the music industry and not just a psychiatrist or psychologist, but someone who really knows this industry and will focus on this. This company could be created on the side, eventually to be sold to one of the big major, Universal, Warner, whatever, Sony that would be buying it, and so forth. What are the forces, the key features? So these are samples, and you can find them in the file section online. Another one. Here's a company. The name that was created by the students is called Vinylist, and it's a company that creates vinyl songs. And what they do is they work from peer recommendations. So they let peer recommend a combination of vinyl, and eventually when the combination vinyl is becoming bigger and bigger, they start featuring it for other members of Vinylist to start saying which one they like better. And then they actually let people start pre-purchasing those vinyl in the case they were produced. And the more people start pre-purchasing them, when you reach a certain reserve of number of people to pre-purchase, then the vinyl gets produced. So they have the feature of the product. They explain the different steps of the creation of the product. And then they also explain the tam, sam, sum. So the tam, sam, sum was presented in the last class by one group. So there's one group that presented it. I think there was 3 groups that didn't present it. So the TAM SAM SUM is something very important that you have to understand. TAM is so TAM will be all the people, if we use ELS, for example, that have psychological problems in the United States of America and will need support. SAM will be the people that would be in California, and then some will be the people that are in California, have psychological problem, and they are in the music industry. So if you want, it's always represented as a target, going from the broad population to the more narrow population to the exact target that you will focus on. TAM, SAM, SUM. So you have to create a TAM, SAM, SUM, because with the TAM, SAM, SUM, you are able to quantify your markets by guessing what will be the final number of customers that you will sell in the first year. What's very important is you have the tree bubble, TAM, SAM, SUM, but then you also have an estimation out of the sum of how many people you will get from the sum. So this was the number of people that consume music, the number of people that consume music as a physical object, that's the sum, and then the number of people that will buy a tape, a cassette tape. But then you also have to estimate out of this, out of the sum, how many do we think we can sell the first year? So here it says 1%. All right. So the percentage is oftentimes small because it's the first year and it's your business trying to capture this business. It all depends how many sum you have. If sum is 100 people, maybe you could capture 25%. But if the sum is still hundreds of thousands of people, maybe your sum estimation will be a 2%. So now what the student ate, and I understand why they hate it, is how do we know if it's 1 or 2% or 2.5%? The reality behind this is it's more of a feeling, what feels right. Because you have to balance the percentage of people that you're going to get out of your sum from the amount of marketing you're going to do in order to get them. So the most common thing that Professor Mackenzie run into, and I see it at the end, and at the end it says, hey, don't be too tough because their sum is all screwed up. And I know when it says that, is that the percentage going to be very high, like they're going to say 12%. And at the end, their marketing budget is going to be very small. The bigger the number of estimates you're going to get from the people you're going to sell, usually the larger the percentage of marketing money you're going to have to spend, which makes sense, right? You have to promote much more. You have to do many more social media, many more advertising, many more sales, many more sponsoring, many more events in order to sell to more people. But this costs money. So then the problem with this is it screws up your break-even analysis. Because in your break-even analysis, you're going to try to minimize the cost in order to minimize the sales price in order to increase the number of products that you can sell in the shorter time. But then that's a catch-22 because if you have very little marketing, you can expect to sell very much. So it's kind of like a cat running after its tail. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So you have to find a good balance here. The time, everybody can do it. Never had a student had a problem. The sum, everybody's fine. The sum is very fine. But the determination of the percentage is you have to discuss this with your group. And it is possible that you will give one that is really not very good, which will be flagged by Professor Mackenzie in your one sheet. If you make the mistake again, it will be flagged in your next document, which is called the go-to-market, which has just more elements. You see, we emphasize the PESTLE, the competitive analysis, we emphasize the SWOT, a full SWOT, and here we can start talking about the STP, the personas and all of this. So there you start having to go into more details in the product features and in the customer features when you go to the go-to-market. So there you can start showing, you know, the preliminary budget, the preliminary forecast. Maybe here you will have a full break-even analysis that you can start playing with and showing. Okay. So these are available and these are sort of your rubric to follow. But then you will see You see, Napkin was a business that is an app that helps people to find gigs and so forth. And recorder was an electronic flute for people to use in order to play with their instructor and so forth. So every time you see the time sum, and it's presented in different ways, and there is pros and cons in each one of these. I mean, the key features are very clear here. They are very clear there. Sometimes they are not as clear. And you just want to do a one page like this. It doesn't have to be longer than this because you will be presenting that one page with your group. And so it's important to go back to the key basic things which I have started talking about here, the opportunities. It's better if it's a strategic opportunity, if you start thinking about that. It's better if you start understanding who are the customers, do your STP, segmentation, targeting, and positioning, the image, and think about the personas, the specific group of customers, do the research, do some interviews. Start talking to people and say, based on our interview, based on existing secondary data, and then you start talking about what's unique about your product. The uniqueness is defined through the just noticeable difference. What is it that we do that creates a value for the customers based on those opportunities that we have identified for those specific customers with this specific image and the specific value, which is expressed through the just noticeable difference. So now all of this is what you sort of did in the previous class. Now you have to do it for your own entrepreneurship by explaining to us what you think is a realistic, exciting investment in the music industry. It has to be in the music industry. So what you should do next is meet with your group and talk about it. Each one of you come up with what. So, I know it's terrible to say this, but what idea you got? But remember that you won't present the idea to us. You will present the opportunity. But when you talk to each other, you can talk about ideas. It's okay. At the end of the day, we are human beings, and it's easier for us to talk about ideas. But once you've discussed these ideas, make sure that the person who has an idea can defend it with an opportunity to support it. Once there's an opportunity supporting the idea, then when you talk to us, you don't talk about the idea, is you talk about this gap in the market that you found, supported by an opportunity which create this business idea of X, Y, and Z. So it's the tangible element, the objective elements before you talk about the subjective. But when you talk to each other, it's okay to come up with 2 or 3 ideas. Oh, I have this idea of making music that helps you play golf better. That's just an idea to play better golf, a special music that works well with golf players. And there's an app that goes with it, and you listen to the music depending if you're playing a par 3 versus par 4 or par 5. You have different type of music, and research shows that it helps you play. Then it's just an idea. Okay, let's see if there's an opportunity behind that. Do people play golf and listen to music? Do people, if they play golf and listen to music, certain music they'll play better, and then whatever. And if you find the opportunity there, then you can talk about the idea. But if it's an idea that it's only in one person head, then it cannot be supported by opportunity. Then it's scary for an investor to invest in it because it's sort of does only exist in one person's head. So it's okay to talk about idea. Make sure there's many people heads that would be okay with it, and then it becomes an opportunity. Does that make sense? And so you don't want to have a group where there's only one person has anything to offer. Everyone should have something that they think could be cool to develop for this class together, and then share it. And if you have 4 members, then 4 IDs are developed. If you have 5 members, 5 IDs, 6 IDs. It's harder to work the bigger the group, but that's how it works. Yes, Ashe.
When you brainstorm for ideas or search for ideas,
Yes.
Where do you go? Do you go to trade journals or business journals and just see what's happening in the world of business, music business, and
Yes. So you look for a problem.
okay,
Someone saying, "Oh, this is not good," or "This used to be better." And then that's why I said, this is very, very important. And very few people did it even in that class, is interview people. When you bring back something, remember you said this, Asher, actually about the Super Bowl. Remember
yeah,
the thing? And he said, and that was very strong, is they say, the Super Bowl generated a thing where people said, "Oh, you know what, this is really cool," and blah blah blah, and you people commented on it and all this. That
right,
becomes that becomes a comment, a problem that can reveal someone's bringing a solution to fill in that gap, and that becomes suddenly a business for someone.
yeah, okay, yeah. They were saying the English people were saying that
Yes,
they enjoyed the performance even though they did not understand
understand. Yeah,
the language. That's the problem because they were feeling a little kind of left out watching the
yes,
people that understood the language enjoy it a little bit more than they did.
yes.
So,
So when you see this, you say, "Oh, wow, could we offer some sort of ear,
solution.
some earphones or whatever that people could have the language shift in different languages,
That's a good
but
idea.
but the native thing, and that way you could hear this person, but at the same time hear the version in your
Yeah,
language of selection and be in the moment and enjoy the content of the message." And
gotcha.
and then suddenly that's what it is. And you just say, "We created this cool earphone and it's going to help in those concerts when there's multiple languages for people to hear it in whatever language they will prefer to hear it." That's a perfect example.
Okay.
But then that's an idea, somewhat supported, but you need to do more research to beef it up.
Right.
To more opportunities, more data shows that, yeah, this is not just a few people. That's 25% of the people in concerts, think that would be great. And they would buy the product or they would spend a little bit more money on the tickets to get that earphone. And that's it.
Mhm.
And actually, this may be just the one that you want to do because it's kind of something probably that you can do in the next 6 weeks.
Mm. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I got my suggestion.
So yeah, that's one suggestion, and that's all you have to do. If every one of us, you are willing to meet at a certain time, just make sure that you come with one of these, and then you discuss it. That way, you save a lot of time. It is possible that at that meeting you will pick one, and that's the one that you will carry. And have I ever seen people go to the one page, and after the one page they change because they realize this is a not a good direction? Yes. Does it happen often? Not very often. 15% of the time. There is that, and it's kind of annoying because then the students realize that why did we pick this? It's too complicated. It doesn't make any sense. So try. That's why the more you bring with a bunch of selections, the better for you. That way you can select out of several versus being stuck on one. Okay.
Okay.
All right, everyone. See you next Wednesday then.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah.
Thank
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 you.
you.
Uh,
Thank you.
you.
Good
Good night.
night.
Good night, everybody. Bye bye.